Fairy tales are rife with beautiful women whose looks send men into madness, whose looks drain men of their health, whose looks transform men into aggressive animals on the prowl. It's a problematic theme that 17th century fabulous French writer Madame Delnoy sends up in her Tale of Mira.
Fucked up fairy tales with Liz.
The Tale of Mira is a short story that is part of Madame's broader novel titled The Ingenious and Diverting Letters of the Lady, travels into Spain describing the devotions, nunneries, humors, customs, laws, militia, trade, diet, and recreations of that people, intermixed with great variety of modern adventures and surprising accidents, being the truest and best remarks extant on that court and country. Now that's the type of title that'll make a librarian's eyes cross. Though on the flip side, if this were a musical, the title would be too short, something like Mira! Exclamation point. In what I assume is a fictional setup, Madame is told this tale by the locals of Spain during her trip. Madame's party finds themselves by the ruins of a castle near Garganson, a place in Spain that doesn't exist now. Maybe it's not even in Spain at this point. I don't know. I didn't read the whole thing. There are several places in Spain called El Gargaton. Maybe it's one of them. The locals told Madame that the castle ruins had been home to a king and queen and their extraordinarily beautiful daughter. The young woman was called Mira, the Spanish term for look, because everyone's gaze was drawn to her. And if your attraction was inclined towards women, as soon as you looked at her, you fell desperately in love with her. Mira! 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 And unfortunately for you, if Mira didn't take a liking back, the indifference and pride in her eyes would kill you. Literally. Yes?
You've killed me. I just wanted to love you. Totally worth it.
And this became a problem for Mira's kingdom. It was as if all the men had gone to war and very few had come home. Hello, subjects! Welcome back to our monthly town hall. I look forward to hearing how the royal family can better serve you. Steward, who's up first? Your Highness, this is the baker's wife. And what is your need, ma'am? Your daughter killed my husband and son, and frankly, most of my customers. That is a bold accusation. I have witnesses, and I am not alone. Yes, my two brothers perished at your daughter's hand as well. And my grandson, and it all happened at that procession yesterday. Exactly how many of you are here for the same reason? Oh, dear. Look, this can't be true. We should conduct a test right here, right now. Bring Mira here, and let's find her some surviving men. Oh, I know. Steward, bring the French delegates who arrived here this morning.
Bonjour, monsieur.
Gentlemen, you have yet to meet my daughter. This is the Princess Mira.
Mon Dieu, quelle belle femme.
Mira, say hello to the French delegates. Sup.
Zut alors.
Oh my god. Oh shit.
So indifferent.
Oh my god, that's gonna start a war. Okay, I admit that this doesn't look good for my daughter. But my steward has looked on Mira many a time, and he stands here alive. How could that be? I must be immune for some reason. A reason that definitely has nothing to do with the fact that the royal blacksmith and I share a room. Well, if this has been Mira's doing, and I'm not admitting to that, I'm sure we can assume it was a mistake. Mira, honey, be more careful with your eyeballs. But the girl just couldn't help herself. Whether she was just reacting honestly to being constantly lusted after, or whether she had a particularly lethal case of resting bitch face, her prideful gaze kept slaying men. And since the royal family would do nothing about it, the people took their complaint to a higher power. So, Mercury, tell me what the people have been praying for at the temple these days. Most of the usual for you, sir, but an overwhelming amount of asks to do something about this Princess Mira. Oh, well, taking care of the ladies is, sort of my wife's thing. Juno, do you know anything about this Mira lady? Oh, yes. Word around the mortals is she is wildly beautiful and. Oh, say no more. I'll head down right now to seduce her. Let's see, what should I disguise myself as this time? I've done eagle, I've done bull, maybe a lemur. Jupiter, honey, keep your toga on. If she doesn't want you back, she kills you. That's why people are complaining. There is positively no way she could kill me. I am a god. I am practically the god. Is it worth the risk? She's killed hundreds of men so far, and her parents will do nothing to intervene. I'll send down some natural disasters until they do something about it, all right? So Mira's kingdom was ravaged with storms and other heavenly acts of destruction until her father went to an oracle to get a prophecy on how it would all end. Plans were made to send Mira away, disguising her as a commoner in hopes of cloaking her lethal beauty. She still managed to kill dozens of men through the window of her carriage, but at least the mass graves were slightly less massive. At some point, her transport finally had the idea to travel her through less populated areas, which is how she found herself in the forest by the castle of the young Count Neos. Neos was an interesting young man. He was very talented and handsome, but quite shy. He spent most of his time in the forest where he could be solitary. He had no interest in other people, especially women whom he apparently loathed. Mira had settled in the shade of a tree, where she could let down her cloak without the danger of accidentally slaying more suitors. It was there that she first spied Neos, who was romping through the forest like a wild man. He was clothed in lion skins, and carried a mace and a bow. His hair was lush and wild, and he was dirty like a working man. And this really did it for Mira. My, how the tables had turned. She found herself lovesick for this guy, and she began hotly pursuing him by foot. Excuse me, sir? Hello, I'm Mira. Oh, jeez, a friggin' chick. Sorry, can't hear you. If you would just stop for a moment, I would love to get to know you. Sorry, super busy here. I gotta get my hunt on. This is a very rare opportunity, I can assure you. La 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 la. Please, sir, I am desperately in love with you. Won't you pause for just a moment? This went on for some days, with Mira chasing the Count and him dashing away as fast as possible. Mira bawled on her nurse's lap every night, completely flummoxed why the one man she wanted had no interest in her. The next day, all dolled up, Mira was finally able to catch Neos. She threw herself upon him and wove her hands through his wild locks of hair, turning his head and forcing his gaze to look upon her. Don't you see? Don't you see how pretty I am? Big fucking whoop. Mira dramatically planted herself in the Count's castle, determined she would not leave until he found her as alluring as she was. So Neos simply left and never came back. And Mira finally realized he's just not that into her, and she died of grief. Forever after, local young women claimed they could hear sighs and moans of unrequited love from the castle ruins. They left her baskets of food as a tribute to her and to comfort her, but Madame sums up her tale with her own doubts at the truth of the legend. In fact, when her staff of ladies suggested they leave a cooked pheasant as a tribute to Mira, Madame quipped that she was pretty sure she would enjoy it much more than the princess would for her own dinner. And that is the end. Now, of course, it's hard to say if Madame's tale is purposefully comedy or commentary. It feels to me like it is, but I have to admit I really want it to be. I think the extreme nature of the plot is evidence that it's satirical. After all, it takes a device from Cupid and Psyche, which we will be covering later on in the podcast, and pushes it even further, making the Psyche character a less passive receiver of her adoration and more of an active villain. In this way, Madame points out the ridiculousness of the type of man who says his mistress is the one who ruined his marriage, and it was his victim who brought on her own assault. Whatever you think, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're well. And I'll see you for the next fucked up fairy tale.